Today, what unfolded in the Senate was not just a heated exchange, it was a moment that laid bare a growing crisis inside the Justice Department and raised urgent questions about power, accountability, and whether the rule of law is being applied equally in America.
Madam Chair, Attorney General Bondi, at your confirmation hearing in January, made a clear commitment you would not politicize your position. We are here today at your first oversight hearing 9 months into your tenure, at a time when hundreds of career prosecutors have quit because they were required to take unethical actions at odds with that promise, or feared that they would have to take such actions if they remained on the job. When over 1,000 former federal prosecutors have sounded the alarm about the unprecedented degree to which the powers of DOJ are being abused to go after the president's enemies. I approach this hearing with a heavy heart. As a former federal prosecutor myself, I served in a department that, whether it was under a Democratic or Republican president, would never use the office to go after the president's enemies or to hide the corruption of his friends. But today, the Justice Department has been used to cover up the possible corruption of the mayor of New York or of a high-level administration official taking $50,000 reportedly in cash in a bag, or a child sex predator who befriended the president and some of his cabinet members. And instead of preventing partisan weaponization, your department has engaged in a brazenly political prosecution at the president's explicit direction. The department has become President Trump's personal sword and shield to go after his ever-growing list of political enemies and to protect himself, his allies, and associates. My questions therefore focus on these two themes: hiding the corrupt acts of his friends and prioritizing the political prosecution of his enemies. So let me start with the shocking allegations of bribery and pay to play. 2 weeks ago, 4 major media outlets reported that Tom Homan, the president's top deportation official working in the White House, took $50,000 in cash in a bag from undercover FBI agents in September 2024, just over a year ago. According to these reports, Homan indicated he would facilitate securing contracts in exchange for money once he was in office in a future Trump administration. Reportedly, this exchange was caught on tape. Rather than pursue this investigation without fear or favor, the department and the FBI under your leadership or that of your predecessor before you confirmed quietly shut it down. Once news broke, your deputy and FBI director issued a joint public statement confirming that the Trump administration closed the investigation. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denied Homan took the $50,000, telling a reporter, quote, "Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight." So today I hope you can help us get our facts straight. Was that true, what the White House Press Secretary said when she denied Homan took the money? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, as I stated earlier, I was not in office. I was not confirmed when that was handled.
So does that
Deputy Attorney General Blanche and Director Patel said that there was no evidence that Tom Homan committed a crime. Yet now you're putting his picture up to slander him.
No, I'm putting his picture up showing an interview he gave with, I think, Fox, in which he was asked explicitly about these allegations that he took a $50,000 bribe, and he refused to answer. He said he didn't answer the question whether he took the money, so I'm asking you the question, did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, I answered that question multiple times, and frankly,
Well, I don't think, with respect, I don't think you did, but in case I just didn't hear you, what is the answer? Did he take the money?
Senator Schiff, that happened prior to my confirmation as Attorney General. I said that.
Do you know, sitting here, whether he took the money?
All I know is that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel said there was no case. And Caroline Leavitt is one of the most trustworthy human beings I know.
So
And,
was she?
Senator Schiff, if you
right?
worked for me, you would have been fired because you were censured by Congress for lying with your
we
egregious...
can stipulate to, you can stipulate to all your personal attacks on the Democratic members of the committee.
Personal attacks. You've been attacking my FBI director. You've been attacking my office. You've been attacking...
But what we're interested in...
borders are.
What we're interested in is the answer to these oversight questions.
You were asked
by my colleague. You were asked by my colleague.
Attacking good people.
Regular order, Madam Chair, so I can ask a question. You were asked by my colleague from Vermont whether you will support providing a video or audio tape, if it exists, of Mr. Holman taking $50,000 in bribe money from the FBI. Will you support a request by this committee to provide that tape or tapes to the committee? Yes or no?
Senator Schiff, you can talk to Director Patel about that.
Well, I'm talking to you about it. You're the Attorney General. This will be your decision. Will you support?
You don't have to tell me what is my decision and what is not my decision. I said you can talk to Director Patel.
You don't have to try to.
You think you've got a gotcha with Tom Homan, our borders are.
Excuse me.
Who's been out there fighting for our country since Donald Trump took office.
I'm trying to ask a question. Regular order, please. And you don't have to defer to the FBI director to pass the buck. So I'm asking you, will you support a request so that the committee, or indeed I believe the American people, should be able to see that video or audio tape? Will you support that request?
Will you apologize to Donald Trump for trying to impeach him?
I guess the answer is you won't support that request.
After you now know that Joe Biden tried to cover up Hunter Biden's involvement with Ukraine.
Let me do this, because I think it's valuable that the American people get a sense of what you've refused to answer today. So these are just some of the questions you refused to answer, or have answered with personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you promised you would do during your nomination hearing, when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris. You refused to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played, or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Holman paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question.
You were asked, a law degree,
excuse me. You were asked, did you discuss indicting James Comey with the president? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did you approve the firing of antitrust lawyers who disagreed with the Hewlett-Packard merger? You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you support a restoration fund for violent insurrections to attack the Capitol on January 6th. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you were firing career professionals, career prosecutors, just because they worked on January 6th investigations. You refused to answer that question. You were asked by my California colleague whether you believe government officials, like immigration officials, have to abide by court orders. You wouldn't even answer that question. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing.
Oversight?
Excuse me, you can attack me after my time is over.
You've attacked all of us, including President Trump, for your entire career.
You can attack me later, and I know you've got plenty of canned attacks. We've heard them all day to day.
Canned attacks on you?
This is supposed to be...
No one needs a canned attack on you.
Regular order, Madam Chair, I'm trying to speak. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing of the Justice Department. And it comes in the wake of an indictment called for by the president of one of his enemies. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing, and it comes in the wake of revelations that a top administration official took $50,000 in a bag, and this department made that investigation go away. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing when dozens of prosecutors have been fired simply because they worked on cases investigating the former president. This is, and now the current president.
What about the fires in California?
And
do you care about that, Senator Schiff?
This is supposed to be an oversight hearing in which members of Congress can get serious answers to serious questions about the
Are the
cover-up-
riots in
about the
LA
cover-up-
serious?
About the cover-up of corruption, about the prosecution of the president's enemies. And
I think you owe the president an apology
when will it be
your entire career,
that the
frankly.
members of this committee on a bipartisan basis demand answers to those questions and refuse to accept
Clearly you're a
personal,
failed lawyer
refuse to
because you don't
accept,
understand when
excuse
someone
me,
can and cannot
refuse
answer
to
a
accept
question.
personal slander as an answer to those questions?
Personal slander.
With
Will
that,
you
Madam Chair,
apologize to Donald
I yield
Trump
back.
for slandering him? Personal slander.
Senator Britt.
May I ask unanimous consent, Madam Chair, to introduce into the record the statement of 1,000 former Justice Department officials who warned that the Comey indictment is a democracy-threatening abuse of power. May I also request unanimous consent for the introduction into the record of 282 former career officials at the Justice Department raising an alarm who were voluntarily or involuntarily forced to leave the department because of improper actions taken by the Department of Justice. May I introduce with unanimous consent the Justice Department manual that talks about when initiating and declining charges are subject to impermissible considerations. And finally, Madam Chair, may I introduce the letter from Michael Ben-Ari, a career counterterrorism prosecutor, DOJ, a letter he nailed to his door, which concludes by urging officials to do the right thing for the right reasons, to follow the facts and the law, and raises the alarm that the decision to remove experienced career officials from U.S. attorneys' offices, the FBI, and critical parts of DOJ undermines our country's abilities to counter terrorist organizations, malign nation-state actors, and countless others that seek to harm our nation and its citizens. And he believes that the priority is prosecuting the
still
president's
arguing,
enemies
or are you admitting
rather
Bondi,
than protecting
Ms.
the
Bondi,
country.
one moment.
May I have unanimous
Are you,
consent
are
to
you
enter
entering
these
that
into the record?
without objection?
Thank you. I yield back.
Senator Britt.
Senator Moody, may I clarify one thing he entered in the record? I just want to say that I believe he entered a letter by 200 and something former employees. Well, I believe the spokesperson for that letter was also the spokesperson for Jack Smith.
Senator Britt. Thank you, Madam Chair. General Bondi.
If you care about oversight, democratic institutions, or how justice is supposed to work in a functioning democracy, you will want to stay with us through this entire breakdown. And if this kind of clear, fact-driven analysis matters to you, take a moment to subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. At the center of today's confrontation was Attorney General Pam Bondi, appearing at her first oversight hearing 9 months into her tenure. What should have been a routine check on the Justice Department instead turned into a stark indictment of how the department is operating under the Trump administration. The questioning came from Senator Adam Schiff, himself a former federal prosecutor, and his opening statement was deliberately personal. Schiff framed the issue not as a partisan disagreement, but as a professional and ethical reckoning. He reminded the room that under both Democratic and Republican administrations, career prosecutors operated under a shared principle. The Justice Department does not exist to protect friends or punish enemies. Schiff then laid out why that principle, in his view, has collapsed. Hundreds of career prosecutors have resigned. More than 1,000 former federal prosecutors have publicly warned that the Department of Justice is being weaponized. Those are not activists. Those are people who built their careers enforcing the law from the inside. And that brings us to the allegation at the heart of the hearing. Multiple major news organizations reported that Tom Homan, now a senior White House deportation official, allegedly accepted $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents in September of 2024. According to those reports, the money was handed over in a bag, recorded on tape, and tied to promises of facilitating government contracts once a future Trump administration took office. That is not a minor accusation. If true, it would amount to bribery and pay-to-play corruption at the highest levels of government. Yet according to Schiff, instead of aggressively pursuing the investigation, the Justice Department quietly shut it down. When the story became public, senior DOJ and FBI officials confirmed the investigation had been closed. The White House press secretary flatly denied that Homan ever took the money. This is where the hearing shifted from abstract concerns to a direct demand for answers. Schiff asked a simple question: did Tom Homan take the money? What followed was telling. Attorney General Bondi repeatedly declined to give a direct answer. She emphasized that the incident occurred before her confirmation. She deferred to statements made by her deputy and the FBI director. She vouched personally for the White House press secretary's credibility. But she never answered the core factual question: did he take the money? In oversight hearings, that matters. Oversight is not about loyalty or trust. It is about facts. When the Attorney General cannot or will not say whether a senior administration official accepted cash during an undercover operation, the absence of an answer becomes an answer of its own. If you are finding this breakdown helpful, this is exactly the kind of reporting and analysis we do here, so make sure you are subscribed. The exchange then escalated further when Bondi accused Schiff of slander for displaying Homan's image and referencing a televised interview in which Homan refused to deny taking the money when asked directly. Schiff pushed back, pointing out that oversight requires scrutiny, especially when criminal allegations are involved. At that point, the conversation deteriorated into accusations and personal attacks, including Bondi referencing Schiff's past censure by Congress. That moment is significant, not because of the insult, but because it shows how far the discussion had drifted from the original issue. The issue was never about personalities. It was about whether the Justice Department is shielding allies while aggressively pursuing perceived enemies of the president. And that concern extends beyond this single allegation. Schiff cited examples ranging from alleged corruption involving public officials to claims that politically connected individuals receive protection, while critics and opponents face aggressive prosecution. His argument was clear. The Department of Justice, once an independent institution, is now functioning as what he called the president's personal sword and shield. That is a profound charge, and it is one that resonates precisely because of who is making it, a former prosecutor who worked inside the system he is now criticizing.